Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The Triquetra is out. You know what that means. That's right. Full Scale Friday, the weekend reading is here. This is what a typical personal reading will look like. And if you want one of those, everything's in the description down below. Ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to show you something. A couple weeks ago, went to Barnes & Noble. I picked up a few books. This was one of them. And so was this. Both of these were about like 12 bucks. Not much. Now, one of today's decks is Tarot of the Divine. It has a companion book, Beneath the Moon, also by Yoshi Yoshitani. And Yoshi Yoshitani said that one half of her family came from Japan. The other half came over to the States on the Mayflower. And these were two disparate cultures, but they shared a love of stories. That's where they met, and that's where they came together, and that's what they built upon. Something that you don't know, though. This has fairy tales, myths, and folklore, divine stories from around the world. And as you can tell, it's not a very thick book. Each of these pages has one of the images from the tarot and the story to go with it. They are condensed to one page. And it's still really good. I still do recommend it. But stories like this and stories like this eventually became books like this. And of course they inspired books like The Never-Ending Story. So why did that happen? And that's the question I want to ask before we get into today's reading. Why did those kinds of things happen? What caused stories like this and stories like this or books like these to become books like this? Well, it's very simple. At the time these stories were being told and they were being spread around, it seems something political was happening. Where those stories were once shared openly and freely, they now had to be hidden because they were being censored. You were not allowed to tell those stories to anyone. And if you were caught, you were killed for it. Because the church had spread its influence far and wide. And the deal was, and why I say it was political, was because if they had so many kingdoms, they had kind of reached a critical mass, and now they're expanding ever outward. And they're saying, we see that you've enjoyed doing business with our country. Well, you may continue doing business with our country. In fact, we can make it very lucrative for you. However, your people need to convert. And at first the conversion was done by decree of the king or whoever led that tribe. The missionaries were sent out. They would send out all the, they would do the sales pitches for it. And then, just to get the last few remaining holdouts, they would try to scare them in, or they would kill them. Now my point to all of this being, it was one of the earliest forms of political censorship. And if it was wrong then, it's wrong now. Point number 2, prohibition never worked. And I think we need to really understand that, get it in our heads, and get comfortable with it. It may be an uncomfortable truth, but it's there. It's still the truth nonetheless. Now, of course, today, we've dissociated ourselves from fairy tales, right? They're for kids. No, they're for you too. In fact, I challenge every one of you to pick up at least one of those books. Pick up the one that most resonates with your culture. Like I said, there was that one book, Beneath the Moon, and those have tales from all over the world. You can start there. That's a great. In fact, I recommend it. It's a great place to start. Hit up Barnes & Noble for some inexpensive volumes of those same books. You know, $25 will get you kind of a leather-bound or leatherette version of Grimm's fairy tales. And then I want you to go back and I want you to look at the intellectual properties that are being produced from those fairy tales. And I guarantee you what you're going to see is even more censorship of the thing we use to subvert censorship. I think you'll find it as disgusting as I do. Because those fairy tales, those folk tales, they are gateways. They are a nice little window into all of our respective cultures. If we begin to lose touch with that, we're not going to have a culture left. Pop culture is the only kind of culture we're going to have. You know, it kind of reminds me a little bit of that KMFDM song Dogma, where it says, we fear that pop culture is the only kind of culture we're ever going to have. We want to stop watching TV, stop reading magazines, stop listening to celebrities. You know, it's been a long time since I listened to it, so I might be misquoting it. And it says, but we're addicted to the things we hate. And we really are. But anyway, today I've got the Viking Oracle, Spirit Animal Oracle, Runes of the Gods, naturally, Tarot of the Divine right here in the middle, and the Enchanted Map Oracle, because how can you know where you're going if you don't know where you've been and you don't have any direction? One more announcement before we get underway, and I promise you we're about to get underway. I will be going back onto our tribal podcast to discuss tabletop RPGs more. And if you're not sick to death of hearing me talk about those, I invite you to come along. Also, the link to the interview is on Spotify, and that's down below. I think I've also we were also on Odyssey. The video quality was very, very poor, but I will be going back on Monday. On Monday, I will also be returning and doing one of these. Just because it's Memorial Day doesn't mean I take a day off from doing this. As a matter of fact, I'm only taking the day off of work. It was scheduled that way, don't worry. Goodness knows I need the long weekend. Alright. What say we get this thing done? Starting with you. Boy, this one resonates with me pretty hard. So, Thor. Having Thor around means that we are busting out of our rut. We're going to We're not going to let the storm consume us today. We're going to become the damn storm. We're going to respond in kind. Don't exceed it. Just in kind. So when things go up like that, you rise to meet it. So on, so forth. Don't exceed, just meet. Guided by none other than the Norns. Alrighty. Now, the Norns. The Norns love to play around, I think. They love to sit there and weave those tapestries of your life. And then when it's done, they clip that last string. That last little bit of string that was just kind of dangling there. And that's the end of it. Speaking of endings. Terrible way to start my day, obviously, but I was informed yesterday we just lost actor Ray Liotta. And then when I came home, I found out we lost Andy Fletcher from Depeche Mode. So, thing is, we do have things that are fated. If you're born, eventually you will pass on. That's something that's fated. But our will and our energy can alter them. You can prolong your life, going on the diet, maybe, losing a little weight, maybe taking better care of yourself and that sort of thing. But we all receive gifts from the divine at birth, which we can either develop or ignore. We talked about that earlier in the week. But we need focus and energy if it's to be successful. So when I say rise up to meet whatever it is that's going on, and don't exceed it, don't try to take on too much, just try to do what you can. Now, we also have our spirit animal for today. We really haven't had this one ever pop up, but definitely be loyal to what you love. This weekend, I can't think of anything. I can't think of anything more pressing than being loyal to what you absolutely love. Whatever that is, whatever that looks like to you. It's time to show that love and devotion to it. And if you love it, hang on to it. Do whatever you can for it. It's like having a plant around. You plant that little seed in a little pot, you water it, you fertilize it as best you can, and you take care of it as it sprouts and grows until it becomes something very pretty to look at. Unless you're growing like a little tomato plant on your desk, or maybe a cactus. I don't know. Depends on what that looks like to you. So going right over here, we have Queen of Swords in reverse. We also have Ten of Coins and the Hermit. I'll be honest with you, Queen of Swords. She loves to cut through your bullshit, but this time she's in reverse, and that makes me kind of go, huh? A little bit of confusion there, because I've never really seen her in reverse before. But I can tell you one thing. Looks to me like we're engaging in a little pessimism starting out. Not really optimistic today, are we? I can tell you one thing. That's another card that resonates with me pretty hard. And it does because you can sometimes see things getting worse. And things were so close to being better, and then it all just fell apart. Okay. That's the way it is sometimes, but focus on this a little more. Because this is your happy place. This is what you love. This is what you cherish. And it should stay that way. There's a family involved in this picture here. So all that you're putting forward is actually worth it. Again, things you can't control, you're not going to answer for those. What you are going to do though is you're going to have to look inward a little bit. And the fact that this comes up right there in the mind section, yeah, it's good to be a little contemplative and just kind of like weigh things out in your head. Don't have to share it, but it's a good idea to weigh it. Going over here to the body, we have Judgment in reverse. So right now is not the time to show out. But we do have a King of Swords, and of course we have Death. You know, while we're kind of thinking of you know, I just mentioned Ray Liotta and Andy Fletcher, and that comes up. That's kind of strange. But right now is definitely not the time to emerge and show off. It's not. What the situation does require, though, is some very, very clear thinking. A little mastery over your own thoughts. Like I said, you don't have to share every thought that comes into your head. Certainly some people shouldn't. Because one thing is coming to an end and another is going to begin. And that could just be this week. Honestly though, if I have to see anything with that Death card, it does have to do with you watching this right now. And what it has to do with is just the death of an old way of thinking. Maybe you've come up with a new idea. Maybe you will. In fact, I think so. Let's go to the Spirit for a moment. Got a Queen of Coins. Yeah, baby. 9 of Swords. And a 6 of Coins. You know, this Queen of Coins here is all about opulence, right? That's big bling, baby. That's, I can tell you one thing, just from this part of the spread, I'm looking at it going, oh boy. You know, it's okay to have it all, but, thing that's going to keep you up at night, and that's what this is. Not sharing it. So, this Queen of Coins, pointing at that 10 of Coins here, pointing at having that opulence and sharing it. The constant worry over it, though, it's not going to help you. Instead, it's kind of what you share with others that really makes the difference. It's that little bit of like just, how can I put it? It's that little bit of generosity. I was kind of thinking of, I'm trying to think of a way to put it, but that humble generosity, you know. Kind of sharing and sharing alike. Well, let's go to the map here. Right there in the mind. Home. is home? Where's home to you? Something I do want to share. Monday will be Memorial Day, and I want everyone to keep something in mind. Plenty of people went out there to protect and defend our Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. They didn't make it back home. Also keep in mind, some people made it back physically and never mentally. We also have a commitment here. You know, I was watching a video one time of a guy he was showing he's kind of showing how to survive in an urban environment, like if everything just kind of went south. One of the things that he did was he had a crowbar and some nylon rope. There was a bridge that usually comes up like so. He was trying to figure out how to make it from one end to the other, so he used his rope and he fashioned sort of like a grappling hook. He managed to swing it to the other side, managed a little loop for his foot, and he said, okay, now that you've got everything ready, now commit. And he kind of pushed himself off one end, swung to the other, and managed to get himself to the other side safely. That word, commit, always stuck with me. You can see it all over the place. Once you've started to do something, you really can't stop. Otherwise, your entire project, whatever it is, will fail. And some of us would do a lot of good just simply by committing ourselves to that one thing, instead of like trying to do a million different things all at once. Just something to think about, because you do need that mental focus here. Also, I think that this death is the death of too much multitasking. And right here in the spiritual, we have a wizard of awareness. Sort of looks a lot like that hermit, doesn't it? And in the Celtic tarot, the hermit is known as the Merlin. Merlin the wizard, anyone? But this is about being observant and remaining neutral about what goes on in the world around you. So that applies to the environment inside of you too. So if you're struggling inside yourself, it's time to step into an observer position. Give yourself a new, powerful perspective that neutralizes any of the discomfort or overexcitement. You have the capacity to see things clearly now, unencumbered by opinion or desire. So, I hope that helps. And for the runes, we have Gabo. There we go with the gifts again. Logus and Algies. Alright, so you know what I'm going to do. I think we know enough now, don't we? Again, with Gabo, we're pointing at the Norns card. You have those gifts with which you were born. How are you going to use them? And it's interesting that Gabo comes up a second time this week. We have Laguz. This is sort of this is our go with the flow kind of a card, but you also need to trust that insight that you have. Take the most emotionally calm route this weekend. You're going to need it. Okay? By committing, by having that mental security, by having that clarity of thought, by having that focus, you're going to be protecting and ensuring your success. So this weekend, it's really about just being mindful. Right now, that pessimism is really unwarranted. And that judgment in reverse, that's the one that's really kind of messing with me right now, and I'd really like to know why, so I'm going to look at it for just a moment if you'll indulge me. Yeah, it's a lack of self-awareness. Repeated mistakes. Are you paying attention? Because that's what's messing you up. Not paying attention to what you need to. Not paying attention to what matters. Not focusing. You know, it almost looks like this card starts out and then this card's what relieves it. Right? So you're starting here, then this card says, wait, nope, this is what's most important. Don't be so pessimistic. And I understand these days it's hard not to. You don't have to be fully optimistic. You don't have to go in the other direction. You don't have to overcorrect. Just remember what matters and focus on it. And I think the overall message here, the one that we're getting, is be mindful and be aware. Kind of be present in the moment. Also, be aware of what's going on in you if you want to break this little cycle that you're in. What you love most is what's going to be the thing that will guide you. May not be as interesting. Might even be more so. You never know. Give it a shot. But definitely look inside. Old thought patterns are what's messing you up. Let go of them. Whatever isn't serving you, let go of it. That I'm definitely seeing. Be aware of yourself. Be aware of your surroundings. That's really it. You want to break out of your rut, that's what you got to do. You got to start really having some self-awareness here. Otherwise, you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always got. Simple as that. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I thank you for joining me. Just remember, I love you all. Take care of yourselves and each other. Always do what lights you up. And as always, shine on.